Thanks for being here, everybody. Ultimately, we just, getting back on track. I think our guys had a couple days to, let their bodies recover, which was really good. And we talked a lot about that, is that it's your bodies that were recovering, not your minds. So they're locked in on the task at hand. Obviously, today is a Monday for us. So we'll be on the road, a couple days from now. So we got to get a good week of practice in. We understand, this is a very, very good football team that we're about to play with unbelievable personnel that they play really, really hard. It's a competitive brand of football, very well coached, all the things that come with it. So it's going to take a lot, and it's a, interesting Tuesday night game. Not across the country, but, decently far away. So there's a lot that we have to manage properly in here. And I know our guys will do a good job of that.
You kind of mentioned this being a Monday. How is this at this point of the year, having what will be about back-to-back mini buys of just getting that extra rest for some of these guys?
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it comes at the perfect time. If this was at week 2 or week 8, a little different, but sitting where we're at right now is kind of perfect for us to be in a position where, again, we get our bodies back and guys are in position to get a little bit more healthy, a little bit of rest, which you need before you climb into the second half of the season. So it's, kind of the perfect moment in time for this.
How much has it helped having maybe a few of those extra days to look at what you did well against ODU and then also look at what Texas State has been able to do over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, definitely. I think, obviously the second half of that game defensively was really good for us in the ODU game. The whole game was good offensively. So, we got to be able to repeat that and know what and why it happened and where did we exploit some things? Where did our guys make plays that maybe they hadn't in the past? Where were the connections, a little bit better, and how do we just continue to build that? Again, it's every week for us, it has to be about getting better. It has to be about taking steps forward and finding ways to continue to grow and be better as a program. And, I know that our guys did that practice we had yesterday on Sunday was phenomenal. It was probably one of our better practices of the day. Definitely one of the fastest. And to get that in, is really good for us to get back out and get moving again. And then today they're off and we're right back into it, for tomorrow.
How do you like playing on a Tuesday? Have you ever had a
No, never played on a Tuesday. Obviously Thursdays, Fridays, all those things. Never on a Tuesday. I think the way the conference did it was really good, though. If there was somehow it could not happen, but if we were playing again on a Saturday or something along those lines, it would be near impossible. But I like the setup of it. I think that, again, if both teams are in the same scenario, obviously, so I think it's one of those things that we just got to manage it well and use our sports science and figure out what makes the most sense, throughout this, the week and leading up to it. I think we did a really good job of that.
I know Katie asked you about the 2 extra days already, but how have you all utilized that? Is it going into the game plan? Is it just another day or 2 extra of good on good, or how have you kind of utilized?
Yeah, that's ultimately what we did yesterday. Was there was some, the scout looks were a lot more meaningful than what they might be on a Sunday because you actually have a lot of things that you intend to do in the game plan, and then you have the looks that you need to see against the team that we're about to play. So that was really, I think, a great opportunity for us to get out there and just, again, have a much more meaningful Sunday.
So kind of speaking of good on good, how valuable has it been for your offense going against this defense? Because I know your defense has created havoc for opponents. What does it do when your own offense is going up against them in practice every single day?
Both. I think it's great. And anytime we go good on good, why do you do that? Well, if you spend all your time only on scout, then you're going to get the right look, but at what speed and what physicality? When you go against the defense, goes against the offense, and it's not scripted, some things are scripted and the coordinators make sure they're getting the looks they need to see in certain scenarios, but some of it we just put the ball down and go. And now you're talking about getting the right speed, right? So you could stay fast. You're talking about, getting the right strength and the right struggle inside so, you could stay strong in there. And then you get into the same thing where you don't know what you're going to see. So then your ability to keep your mind sharp and handle just about everything that you might see. So that's what the benefit of the good on good. And it's important, again, that we stay fast, we stay strong, and that we keep our minds, sharp for anything that we could see. Because, again, we don't have a contract with any of these teams we're playing that they have to run what they've showed us up to this point in time, and often they don't. So it's really important that we have a chance to see just about everything on top of what we're preparing for and playing, the odds of seeing that, but at the same point in time, being able to have the ability for the unknown and to work through and decipher the unknown and get ourselves to positions where we can make, educated decisions with protections on offense or, getting the ball out quickly or how the run blocks combo up based on a look that might have changed post-snap, based on a move that might have happened pre-snap, all that communication that goes with it, and then the execution, it's essential.
I know you didn't mention that last week was a rivalry game until after you guys had won that
Yeah.
game. But when you have a game like that against an opponent that had been playing really, really well, how much energy and motivation have you kind of seen coming off of that game where guys are maybe a little extra hyped up that they know that they can perform like that against a good opponent?
Yeah, I don't know that, again, it's every game is going to, again, take on its own personality. And I think that the way we were able to execute should certainly give us confidence. But it's all for naught if we don't go right back and put the work in and get done what we need to get done. Obviously, there's enough things that were, visible on offense and on defense that we have to clean up, and that's really where our focus is, just finding ways to continue to get better.
And I know Texas State right now, they haven't gotten that Sun Belt win yet, but they've been in a lot of close meetings. What are you taking away from this opponent that, was at the beginning of the year projected to finish really close to the top in the Sun Belt West, but maybe has had luck not go their way so far?
Yeah, well, they've lost 3 of them by 1 score, and multiple games they've been up a bunch and in position where they were holding the other team's offense at bay for a lot of the game. And then it just kind of, they got some points at the end, the other opponents would, to put them in situations that took them into overtime, et cetera. But there's a lot in here. They're really good. I mean, personnel-wise, you put up their roster and what that looks like and what those bodies are going to look like and the speed and the twitch and the toughness and the competitive style of football that they play. That's what stands out to me. They're just all competitors. You start with the running back and the quarterback and the receiver, the offensive line, and then you get over to defense, the defensive end, probably the best one that we would have faced up to this point, minus Louisville game. But they're really good. The linebackers are really good. The whole front is good. The back half is good. They're all very, very good. Then you add in the kick returner and punt returner, and they're dynamic. So there's a lot in here that we're going to just have to keep working through and make sure that we're putting our guys in position to be successful. But watching that film, again, those close games are what they are. They didn't win them at moments, but at the same point in time, they easily could have. And at moments, they were winning those games substantially and probably could have pulled ahead. So, the last game, they turned it over a little bit. We need, that to go in our favor. And when that opportunity presents itself, we got to make the most of it like we did in the second half of this past game.
What are you seeing out of their quarterback? I know he's a redshirt freshman. Has some skill players on the outside he can zip it to. Just what have you kind of seen out of him?
I mean, he's just a competitor. Like, you could tell he is, he is in his stance and he's a springy kid, and he's got a lot of twitch. He's quick. He looks to throw, but then he knows where to go with the ball. He scrambles to throw, but then they have a lot of draw built into the pass game, so he'll just pull that down and take off right away. He doesn't take, meaningless shots. He knows when he's got to get the first down, and the other times he ends up sliding and getting his body on the ground. There's a lot that he does. He gets the ball spread out really, really well. He does favor one guy, but rightfully so. But there's other guys out there that he does get the ball to as well, and then their scheme is really good. Obviously, Coach Kinney does a very good job with their, where they're at offensively and just the problems that they present. They're an excellent football team, and it all goes through him.
Talk about the defense a little bit. What do you see on film from their defense?
Hey man, number 2 is a problem. That kid is really good at defensive end. His motor, his ability to lock you out. He just shocks you immediately, keeps you at bay, and then he does a good job shedding or working into rips or working into little swipe moves, and he just doesn't stop. You watch him. He kind of like the quarterback. Prior to the snap, that quarterback's like moving a little bit. You could tell his heart rate's up. Number 2, his hands are moving. He is ready on every single play, and he plays that play to the whistle, whether he was knocked down, whether he slipped, whatever he does, he just does not quit. He's really, really good. You go over to 0, the other DN, 12 jumps in there. You go into the D line and just how big, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", across the board inside, and they're just long and strong and physical and tough. Linebackers at the second level can run sideline to sideline. They can cover. They can do everything they ask them. And then in the secondary, they got long guys that are really, really fast, skilled and play, very, very hard. That's the thing that you watch. It's just a competitive group of guys that play every single play to the whistle in a very physical fashion.
What have you seen from your offense the last couple weeks to generate the yards that they have, over 1,000 yards of offense the last couple weeks since the game in Atlanta where it was a struggle offensively? Is there something that you've seen different from the offense the last couple weeks?
Yeah, I think their confidence continues to grow, and then I just think that the relationship with the receivers and quarterbacks are, at a premium or at a peak right now. they're just on the same page, and I think that's probably the most important thing. I think that, Zoe trusts, his receivers to be where they're supposed to be. I think they do a really good job of understanding the coverage that they're seeing. They understand where they need to be in the space where they need to be, and then their just communication has been phenomenal with, what they're each seeing and getting it on the same page. And I think that's the thing to me, is that if there's anything, it's really that. It's the meetings, the own it meetings that they do on their own to just own it, and put themselves in position to get on the same page and, just have that success on the field. So it comes from work. It comes from, their ability to just keep logging more hours and be in situations where they feel really good about what they're both doing, receivers to quarterbacks. The run game's been the run game. We've been consistent in that. I think our offensive line, I think our tight ends, Fife had an unbelievable game last weekend. And, we're going to need a whole lot more of that, because these guys are a problem, on the defensive side of the ball. And I just love the way we're coming together, and now not just, the run game, but also the pass game. And I thought we did a really good job of mixing it up, with screens in there to alleviate some of the pressure. I thought, we found some check downs, and then at times when Zoe had to pull it down and run, he did just that. So those are all things that there's plays that happen after the play. So you design a play and it's perfectly called, and it's against that defense, and someone slips or doesn't get opened, or just not a look that we're comfortable throwing into. The ability to pull that ball down and create after the play is done is really where I thought we took huge strides as well this past week.
We're going to talk to him in a second, but with Alonzo, and what have you seen with his progress throughout this year that's different right now than it was earlier in the season?
I think everything I just said. I think the ability to be on the same page, and then the ability to create after the fact, after the play is over, and the ball's still in his hands. What does he do next? And I think that, he proved that, he's a threat to pull the football down and run. And there's not only the designed run plays that he has, but also the ability to create after the play. And that's just what makes it a little bit different. And I think that's where you've seen us, get first downs and put ourselves in position to get back even with the sticks, or get ourselves in situations where we could think about going for it on fourth downs. All that kind of goes through him.
You and I have had some conversations about Coach Hitchler and how well he has been at his job this year. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of what's been so, I guess, impressive that you've seen out of him throughout the entire year to have this defense playing like they are?
Well, I think they're on the same page. I think, like we're talking about the quarterbacks and receivers, I think that whole thing holds true for the defense. They start every Sunday, they review that film together, talk a little bit about the opponent, but then they come in on Tuesday morning and it's a whole entire, breakdown of what we're going to see, before we get out to practice, and what our reaction to that is, or how we're going to attack that. Then you get to Wednesday and it goes into more third down. You get to Thursday, it goes into more of the short yardage and the red zone stuff. And then you get to Friday, there's another meeting, just kind of tying it all back together again. And, the walkthroughs are meaningful. There's nothing out there that we're doing that's just to do. I think he does a really good job of being really specific. And then I think he just really, demands a lot, not only Coach Hitch, but every position coach on the technique that they are employing out there at the same point in time. So it's not only the schematic piece, but then it also goes into just the techniques that we're using and making sure that we don't relent on that. And I think our guys just keep becoming better and better technicians. I think, J.E. is a great example of it in that pass game, that we just played. There's a lot in there that he does, that he just keeps getting better and better at. And that's really important, that we're not, just talking about the scheme, but we're also talking about the techniques and really demanding a lot and making sure that we're evaluating that at an elite level. And I think that's where their growth is happening. The development is the piece that I think he brings to the table that's just as good as anybody in the country.
You have worked with Coach Gratzky for a long time. When you brought him in this year, there was talk about finishing games and doing it the right way and getting the guys in the best shape possible to be able to finish games the right way, as opposed to kind of what happened a year ago. Are you seeing that play out with the sports science that you talked about and how they're playing in the second half? In the last 5 games, you've outscored teams 101-10 in the 5-game winning streak. Are you seeing that with what he did with the offseason?
Yes, no question. I should have mentioned that after the game. Like, a lot of that second half has to do with him, realistically. And I think that his ability to, diagnose it, understand it, and then just be, relenting in coming up and talking to me about it. Hey, this practice was a little bit too much. Now we got to, adjust tomorrow, because we can't put ourselves in a situation that we're walking into that game on Saturday, tired. But you can't walk into it not in shape, right? And there's a fine line you're walking as you're pushing for them to be in shape and also not be tired, and, weave it down to to a number right now, and I think our guys do a really good job. Where he really thrives is, in practice when guys start hitting their number, and doesn't allow them to tip over, doesn't want them to, just burn out there, and then try to put a second day together and then a third day together, and next thing you know, that's where the injuries pop up. So I think that to me is probably one of the biggest things. We worked together, for a long time, and his growth and knowledge of the science behind it, he's constantly learning and meeting with people and trying to gather more information, and it's never good enough. There's always a better way to do it, and not a better way to do it, but there's the next evolution of it, and how do we continue to do it, and hitting top speeds in practice and all the things that come with it. He just, every day, we meet after every single practice what we could do better, what we need to do differently, and then he is logging every drill, every rep, every period that we do, and then we're kind of adjusting practice, either adding reps or putting in a new drill or doing something else that will, kind of accomplish the things that we need to do better the next day. Yeah, he's top notch.
I talked to Coach Sims before the season, and he mentioned that last year with Wayne, he would tell him, hey, your time's coming. And, now he's in a position where he's second in the country with all-purpose yards, and he's your go-to guy. Where have you kind of seen his comfort now as he is kind of slotted into that running back one role?
Yeah, I think it's there. I think, it was probably always there for him. I think that now he just has had the opportunity, and unfortunately it came, with injuries, but I think that's it. That door opens, make sure that you're running through it, and he did just that and is doing just that. But he does it all, right? He's returning punts. We had him returning kickoffs at one point, but that's not, when guys went down, that wasn't the safest thing to do. But what stands out to me is not only his knowledge of the game and the way he reads it and sees it, but his just toughness. You watch the one run over here where on the right sideline he puts his pads down and is behind his pads, and he is just not going to go down easy. He understands a firm foot. He is underneath people, and on his contact, and then his feet. Like when he hits you, man, those feet don't stop. His knees are driving, and it's a tough brand of football that he plays. And then that one play in particular, it started with contact where he probably thought this is where it ends. Then all of a sudden the guy rips at the ball. He spins off of that and just keeps going. So, there's more than, you design the play, to get to the safety maybe, and it's him in the safety, and maybe he gets tackled, but that hasn't, happened very often. He makes a lot of people miss and does such a good job.
I know we didn't see Io last week. Do you have an update on if he'll be able to give it a go on?
Yeah, he was out there yesterday running around and felt pretty good. I think that, we'll figure it out a little bit more tomorrow, just exactly, where he's at. But I know he wants to go. It's back to Texas, all the stuff that comes with it, and I'm sure he'll be just fine. But we'll see how it plays out.
For sure. But does I would imagine the 2 extra days helps
Definitely.
in a situation like
that? Yeah,
that.
definitely, 100%, 100% helps. Yep.